there's a picture.
All right. So welcome, everyone. I'm going to jump to me here for a quick second. Welcome to our weekly episode of Cassidy Theater and Company. My name's Katie Flanigan, and I am on the board at Cassidy Theater. So thank you so much for joining us this afternoon for what I am ensured will be a very entertaining episode. We have a couple of our tech folks with us, and I will introduce them here in a second. But before I do, couple reminders, things to take note of. So first, thank you for being a supporter of us in all that we do with Cassidy Theater, keeping the arts alive. If you enjoy our conversation today, consider going to CassidyTheater.com and click Make a Contribution. So you see that coming across the screen here on the bottom. And then secondly, if you have any questions for our friends who are on the call this afternoon, feel free to drop that into the live chat comments. And if there's a good question or comment, we'll share it up on the screen. But otherwise, without further ado, I will be introducing JoEllen Woodring, Joe Plovock, and John Flanigan. All right. Welcome, everyone.
I did it. I'm here.
Fabulous life, bro. They're so nice.
Hey, you leave me alone. I was trying really hard.
So about 2 minutes before we went live here, Joe got his background set up because he is one of our light designers. So showing off that skill.
I have a halo. We all
the
know
only
that's
time
not true.
ever.
The only time ever.
Yes.
For sure.
So on our call, we have JoEllen, who has run our light board, Joe, who has done light design, and then John, who has done our soundboard. So we're focusing this episode a little bit more on the behind the scenes, talking about what actually goes into productions at Cassidy Theater and just learning more about you all. So we'll get started by just talking about what inspired you to work with Cassidy or work in the theater.
Not it.
I'll go first. Fine. I grew up in a little tiny hick town, and that's not what inspired me to the theater. But my life was kind of small in a little hick town, and in high school I went to Toronto and we saw Phantom at Fantages Theater, and I was just like, "What? Mind blown! What's happening here? Why are there candelabras coming out of the floor? How is there a chandelier crashing to the floor and nobody died? This is amazing." And we got to, because it was a school group, they let us see some of the stuff and some of the how did it happen, and it just it was so cool to me. And I thought, this is just something that I really enjoyed, and telling the stories of all kinds of different stuff and being amazing things you can do to enhance a story. And I just kind of decided I wanted to be a part of that. So that was kind of where it started. I went to BW. I did my work study job building sets in the theater for a couple of years, and I worked on a couple shows. Then I took 15 years off from the theater or something like that. And then I came to Cassidy. And the rest is history.
Yeah, always come back to the theater.
It always comes back around to the theater.
Yes.
Well, I can blame you, Katie, for getting me into Cassidy.
Thanks.
So I still don't remember why I went with you to the Joseph auditions, because that was my first show. Was Joseph, and Sharon, yeah. Sharon was like, I gave Sharon my information about helping with tech, and then she lost it, so I had to give it to her again. Sorry, Sharon.
And we were like, sound guy? We need a sound guy. Totally.
Honestly, I was just offering to help Ken with building sets. My theater background is very random as far as I didn't have a theater program in high school, which was very small. Again, you could call it Hicktown. It wasn't that. We were the center of all the little tiny hick towns. We were the bigger hick town, I guess, if you're going to use that vernacular. But every 2 years, our school would bring in this outside organization to run a theater, run a show. They bring in sets and everything else for us. So that's how I first got exposed to theater. I got first exposed to running sound. My youth pastor was like, "Hey, we need someone to run the soundboard for our Sunday morning church practices." So it was like, we need someone. We'll figure it out. We'll help you figure it out. And this was 8th grade. And then I've run sound in various venues through churches and college, some paid, mostly not paid, mostly volunteer, because I enjoy it. It's a fun challenge. And then, when it came to coming into Cassidy, I was like, I offered, like, hey, I've run sound before, I've done a little bit of lights, but not really. And then I offered that to Ken. Ken's like, oh, we have a guy who might be doing light sound, but we might not. I helped him build the sets for Joseph, and then it's like, hey, don't have someone to do sound, so here's a board. So
here's a board, here's the buttons, figure it out.
I mean, that's generally how it's been, because like I've never worked the same soundboard twice at like 2 different venues. I've only once seen the same board twice, and even that technically isn't true, because it's just a wider version of the other board, like with more channels. But I don't know. That's at least the nice thing about sound is, for the most part, most brands of boards are similar enough that you can figure it out.
That's how they work. So I guess I got started in theater when I was a kid. I performed a lot. And then as I continued performing, once I got into high school and I was performing more, I did a lot of AV work. And then I worked with one of the actually Cleveland area greats in the tech department. And that got me involved in sound and lighting and setting and all the different ideas of what you can do and how you can shape a show based on things like lighting. The different shadow effects and the way that you can do things and how much more exciting it can be with flashing lights. And JoEllen, of all people, knows that most of the shows that I design have flashing lights.
Yeah, you can involve me going like this on a button over and over again.
Almost every show I design, I'm like, all right, now here's the deal. You're going to push this button on the beat of the music. Just go. Just do it.
It'll look different every time, and that's okay.
That is okay, though, because that's the excitement of it. Because we do have people that come back and see the show all the time. And there's just little subtle differences in different shows and in different runs of the shows. Because, someone doesn't always have that perfect line, or someone paraphrases this, or that light is just a little bit different, or, your sound is a little bit louder here or a little bit louder there. I think that's the beauty of live theater, though. But I do. I really got into the tech side of it. I enjoy it. I do a lot of tech work anyway, just in general. And I think that, unfortunately, with my scheduling, I would love to get back on stage and perform or direct or anything along those lines. But my schedule just hasn't really allowed it until, this awesome Corona time. And now you guys aren't doing anything. What's that about?
I know. Give and take, I suppose. I'd love to see you on stage, Joe.
Yeah, it's been known to happen. It has. It's just, rehearsal schedules are crazy. And my schedule just doesn't allow that part. So I'll take on that 1 week of tech week, and I will go with it. We'll go strong, we'll go hard, and we'll make it happen.
So on a stage that did involve like putting a ladder up so you could change a light.
Wait, what? Ladders? Whew. I love ladders. They're my favorite. Especially the ones that we have at Cassidy Theater. Please donate ladders. Please. If you have a really big ladder, preferably a metal one, please donate it.
Joe loves rickety ladders. Don't listen to him.
What?
Something like the
I'm always like, hey, Kenny, do you want to climb this 40-foot ladder that looks like it's going to break any minute now?
Yeah, then Joe and I sit in the back and we're like, good job. Yeah.
He's like, no problem.
It's fine.
Yes. Our tech folks know no fear.
True story. It's just how we roll. We're the ones that get there really, really early, and we stay really, really late.
Yes, and you brought up a good point. So typically, tech for Cassidy, for the most part, doesn't come in until actual tech week, which is the Sunday leading up to the opening of the show. So for you all, since you didn't really get to see most of the process beforehand, what is that like transitioning in and learning the show basically within a week?
I think for me, I really enjoy hitting up one of the rehearsals beforehand. I just want to see where the director is taking the show. Sometimes I know the show like the back of my hand. Other times I've never even heard of the show and I'm not too sure what's going on. So I like to see where the direction of the cast has gone, where they're going, what's going on, what's happening on the set. So I try to pop into at least one rehearsal before Tech Sunday. But then once Tech Sunday comes, it's all about figuring out every single cue and every single movement of everybody and who's we're going to hit with what light where. We have a lot of lights. We really do. We have a lot of lights. Some of them work. Please donate money.
None of them does it.
But I think the challenge is getting it done in 3 days. My job is to design the entire show. So I sit there all day long on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and I design it. And by Wednesday-ish, I'm just kind of directing the lighting because I have to sit there and watch it and make sure things are right and make sure things are where they need to be and make sure the cues are being taken when they're supposed to be taken. And JoEllen is absolutely amazing at all of that.
Has that ever been an issue, Joe?
What?
That one time. It's never been an issue.
Maybe that one time.
Maybe one time.
But I do like, and then like I sit down and honest to God, JoEllen is not only the board operator, but JoEllen is like my secretary when it comes to designing. I'm always like, so, hey, take this cue here. Yeah, write that in the book. Just write it in the script. Just go.
I'll figure it out later. We'll figure out what it looks like later. But I know there's going to be a cue here, so I'm just always writing things.
This is cue 101.27.
Yeah. I know we're going to put 8 more cues here, but I don't know what they're going to look like or exactly when they're going to happen. Down, and we'll figure it out.
This is Q 125.2. We're going to skip to Q 180.
So for those who are watching this and don't know how to program sound cues or light cues for that matter, how does that work?
John, are you above me in your screen?
Yes.
I feel like I'm on the Brady Bunch.
Yes.
Hey, John.
Yes. There are no sound cues. What are we talking about? If we had a digital board, theoretically sound cues could be a thing, but sound cue is in the script. Okay, I need to turn these people on or off. If we're doing a musical, if we're doing a musical or we're doing a play, there can be sound cues as far as sound effects, and then I'm switching over to the computer and pressing a button. Hopefully, in the dark, I'm seeing it correctly, seeing the keyboard correctly. And the computer doesn't freeze, but these things, like sometimes that goes a little bit awry. Like the sound cues won't play. We had that happen we just talked about it. We had that happen during Flat Tidings, and then
we have never had tech issues ever.
And for an entire show, it was either me or the director, or Mike Rafi, voicing all the cues, or I plugged my phone in and played some sound effects off of my phone. As best I could
the beauty of live theater is amazing.
Yes, basically, yeah. But no, like there's digital boards where you could theoretically do cues, but for the most part, it's muting and unmuting people, muting and unmuting channels. Yeah.
So what was the exact question? How does the programming work?
Yeah.
How do you come up with a light cue, basically?
You push a lot of buttons. And then you record them. How do you come up with the light cues? Okay, so lighting is a little bit different from sound. Sound, you have cues, you get to push buttons, and it works, and it's great. Lighting, you literally have to, and it's funny because people are always like, "Why does it take you so long to design a show?" Because every single time the lights change, every single light that comes on has to be reprogrammed in that cue. So how it works is if we have 25 lights on and then we want to change the setting of how that scene looks, we have to not only dim the lights or bring the lights up or do whatever it is, but every single time you see one light flash anywhere, that's a whole new cue. Big was huge when we did Big, and we did, I think it was the number Fun, and the lights in the background just kept changing the entire song. I think one song was 40 some odd cues at least, if not more. But that's the beauty of working with Mike as a director. But every single time that those lights change, that's a whole new cue. So I literally get to go in and program every single light that I have to use, or take out every light that I have to use or I don't need to use. And we take it from there. We program that as one set, one cue, and then you record it, you move on to the next. Most of our musicals are right around, JoEllen, what would you say, around like the 225-ish, if we're lucky?
Probably around 2. My personal highest was Mike LaRochelle lit Pippin, and there was 234 cues in that show.
Right.
And that was the most I've ever done, because I said, wow, there's a lot of cues in this show. How many are there? And I sat there and counted them all one night. I was like, wow, 234. That's a personal best. Okay.
That's a lot. Yeah.
It's a challenge.
But yeah, right around 200 cues a show. I mean, if we're doing just a standard play, those are my favorite when it comes to lighting design, because there's a lot of lights on, lights off. I'm like, right. Hey, we're done with Act 1 and we're on cue number 4. Sweet. And a lot of times with our musicals, I mean, you're on cue number 4 before the curtain even opens. So that's how that works.
Do you at least have the ability to copy and then edit the copy, like the previous cue?
Yeah, there's a way to do that, and I do that often. But if there's a new cue, you're always adding something. You're adding something, you're deleting something, you're moving something, you're fading something, you're bringing something up. That's just what each cue does. So yeah, we do have that copy issue, and we can copy and keep going, but it's not always just that simple. The blackout button is really simple. Just blackout and all the lights go off.
That and house lights and your set.
Hey, house lights aren't even on me, so I'm good.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. So JoEllen, I know just based on what we were just talking about here, Plaid Tidings was probably the most recent in ones of having lots of colorful different types of cues that you worked on. And that one number that's in the beginning of the second act, you were kind of freestyling it. So how was that to kind of work on the production like that?
That one was Joe's brainchild. Joe generally comes up with some kind of something that he wants to do that's really cool. And he's like, well, I can't really program this in as a cue. So I'm going to hit all these buttons over here and you just hit them and let's just do that. But with that particular number in Plaid Tidings, he had built like 8 different cues, and we had some like cylinders on the sides of the set, and it just changed the colors in those. And he's like, okay, so you've got these 8 cues to play with, and whatever you want to do with them is fine, and bounce around in them and whatever, but you have to be back to this cue by this point in the song. And so that one was more complicated than if I just have the buttons off to the side that I can play with. So I had to pay attention to, we're towards the end of the song. I can't be back at the top of the 8 selections that I had. But it's funny because I couldn't ever watch the actual performance on the stage with that one, because I had to look at the screen to make sure I wasn't going outside of the 8 cues that I had. I know, Joe, you make my life hard. That's what I'm saying.
I'm sorry.
You make my life difficult, but I love you anyway.
I'll never do it again. Yes, I will. I'm going to do it probably more now.
Yeah. That sounds good.
No, you two are a hilarious tag team, I have to say.
Honestly, like JoEllen is like the greatest person in the world to work with. I mean, all kidding aside, she is fantastic to work with. She will take any direction in the world, and I mean, even in those times where I'm just like, just do it. I don't care. She always she gets it, and if she doesn't get it, she has a question, and that question's always so specific that we can knock it out. We can figure everything out. We can make it work. And that's how we work as a great team.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we've worked together in enough shows now that we have this great shorthand, and I know those moments of, okay, Joe's head is about to explode, so I'm not going to say anything else right now.
I am
Or
never stressed out when designing. What are you talking about?
Never. No, never ever would that happen.
No.
But, we also, he knows me well enough of what I can do is that he can have some freedom to say, not every lightboard operator can do this, but JoEllen can. So we can do
True
things
story.
and to really benefit. So we can really enhance the story, which is always my goal of, I want to make the best enhancement to the story that we're trying to tell. And so I'm glad that I can bring that to the table and let Joe do what he wants to do from a design standpoint, because I can pull it off and make the actors look really good.
And
For
you
sure.
do so well.
Agreed. So we're getting a couple comments and questions in here. So let me pull one up. All right. So as a lighting designer, are you grateful that once the design is done, your job is done, you don't have to worry about coming to every show? So I guess that's to you, Joe.
Yes and no, honestly. Unfortunately, my schedule doesn't always allow me to come to every show, which is the same way that the same reason again why I'm not on stage anymore. My schedule just doesn't really allow it. But what's cool about being the designer is that yes, I get to go in, I get to design for a week, and then it's in JoEllen's hands. And I have so much faith in her that everything is going to be great. Flip side of that is, yes, there are times when I will show up to the shows just because I want to make sure that none of the lights are blown out or nothing is moved, or because every now and then sometimes things just happen in the theater. You lose a light bulb, or for some shows we've been using intelligent lighting, which is wonderful. When we have like the lights that move and they kind of scan across the stage, sometimes they don't always react properly. So sometimes we have to go in and kind of fine tune a couple of things. But other than that, I love the fact that I can come in and watch a show 10,000 times and, design it, and then I'm kind of sort of done. It also makes it so that I can kind of start thinking about, what's going to happen next. Or the other thing too is when you design a show, especially at Cassidy, I like to kind of foreshadow as to what show is coming up to see if maybe we don't have to move as many lights to program everything the next time, because focusing is a whole nother ballgame, and that takes so much time with all the lights that we have. But no, I mean, it's, to answer your question, yeah, it's a really cool thing that I don't have to be there for every single show. True. But I mean, I wouldn't mind it. Like, our shows are good.
Yeah, just come hang out.
It's been known to happen. I've been known to just show up and pop into the light booth.
Yeah. In the middle of the show is really when Joe likes to show up.
That's because I am late to everything.
Why is there someone coming up the stairs? Oh, it's Joe. It's fine.
All right. Another question from the Mike Carafi. What is your favorite show you've designed at Cassidy? Or we'll say for JoEllen and John, maybe favorite show that you've worked on at Cassidy.
Joe, what Mike really wants to know is what favorite show that he did that you designed for him.
I'm very well aware of what that question means.
If it's not a Mike Carafi show, it's the wrong answer.
Right. Titanic was my favorite show, Mike. Just so you know, it was Titanic. That's actually a lie. Honestly, when we were talking about doing this, I kind of went back and I really started thinking about all the shows that I have designed with Cassidy. And I got to say, I really think it's probably Little Shop. I think Little Shop was my favorite show to design. It was one of my favorite shows to work on. Mike and I had a very difference of opinion for a lot of things with Little Shop at the very beginning of it. And again, Mike is wonderful to work with. Very talented man, very talented director. And, when we sit there and we're designing things, there's a lot of times where he's like, well, I kind of want this. This is my vision. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I can do that. But if I do that, I'm putting 85 cues into this number. But I think that Little Shop was my favorite design because we had a great set. We had a lot of intelligent lighting. We had a lot of LED lighting, which I really like working with because it really sets the scene so much easier, and it's a lot more fun to really pop those colors on the stage.
Adding a good note that it was the best
Thanks,
production
Jen.
I've seen.
I agree with Jen. That was a great show.
All right. John or JoEllen?
John, answer the question.
Your turn, John. What's up?
I'll throw in the at the beginning of the week for Little Shop, I was like, just from I've been helping build with sets, and I was like, we're barely how is this going to come together? That was only my second show, second show.
That's what I say every time I walk into the theater. How is this going to come together?
The fact, especially when you just taking this doesn't include anyone here, but the backdrops that were painted were so beautiful, and then once you put light on them, they were even more incredible. And then the concept of what we already talked about last week, the concept of the in-person plant as a female as opposed to normal productions which have a guy or a big puppet. I don't know. It was just radically different, and especially even seeing other versions now, it's doesn't compare. Though I'd say I finally settled in by my next show, which was Annie, and I'd say that was probably my favorite so far. Though I don't have a huge history at Cassidy just so far.
I love Annie. It's my favorite show in the entire world.
I know everyone loved it for all the kids and all those great things. Jumping back again to referencing Trinidad from last week, and I threw in the question of the dog because every week she'd be standing in the sound booth, which is not very big to begin with, on my shoulder. She had her hand here. While the dog was on stage, she would be death gripping me the entire time the dog was on stage.
That's true.
Sandy, do what you're supposed to do. Do what you're supposed to do.
Please don't run into the audience.
And all but one show, he was fine, and he never ran out to the audience, and we were good. And the one time she wasn't even on back there because she decided to go up on stage with all of them. So yeah, I think that was great because a lot of shows I don't meet everyone until the week of. Which is kind of hard because it's I'm calling out people for for sound check, and I'm saying, I'm going to call your character name because I don't know your real name yet. I'm sorry. But at least that one, I got to know the director, got to know Trinidad really well, really quickly. And then just everyone involved. Again, that was probably also just the settling in of that show for me because it was kind of where I finally felt comfortable with Cassidy.
JoEllen?
I have a lot of favorite shows, so that's the bad news of being there 8 years. We've done a lot of really great shows. I think I liked Bonnie and Clyde best, although that was the hardest show for me because I was doing both lights and we did projections up on. Ken had built a screen into the back wall of the set. And so I was doing both lights and projections up on there and trying to keep track of which was which. The designer was a designer I hadn't worked with before. He brought in his own equipment. So I was using the laptop instead of the board I was used to. It wasn't Joe, so it was terrible.
That's not what I was going for there.
But that was a really great show just because it was a challenge. It was a great cast. It was a great production. I wasn't familiar with it at all before we started and was like, how on God's green earth are we going to sing songs about criminals? But it was really, really good songs about criminals. So, and I really liked Little Shop was a good one. That one was a separate challenge for me because usually I have my script sitting there in front of me, so I know what cues are coming up. And stage manager Mandy called the show, which I haven't had someone call the show for me for years. And so she, stage managers are supposed to call a show, but for us, I think Jen had talked about it when she was on, it's not always practical for our purposes. And I'm pretty good at figuring out where the cues are anyway. So Little Shop, while it was a lot of fun and it was a great show, I didn't have my script in front of me and I was just waiting for the cues to be called, and I ended up memorizing most of them because I'm just too controlling like that.
Because she's that good is what she tried to say.
That's right, because I'm really good and I memorize the cues for the most part. Joseph was a lot of fun. Mamma Mia was a lot of fun. And Titanic really stands out for me, I think, because from the lighting perspective, the lights added so much to the dynamic of telling of that story. And it was such a dramatic story that I thought was really well done. So,
Oh, Titanic.
Oh, Titanic. Tell us the story, Joe. Tell us the start.
We haven't got into that question yet.
No.
Is it a mishaps question? Because that's where I'm leading.
Oh boy.
It's a great segue, Joe. Tell us about the Star Curtain in Titanic. It's the greatest story ever.
So the Star Curtain.
Oh. I guess that's what this is for. Star curtains.
Star curtains.
Mm-hmm.
So during Titanic, at some point, someone said we should get a star curtain, and we all said, "Yeah, that's a great idea." And the rental company that we ended up going through to get it had to ship it in from their location in Florida. So we didn't really get the product until I want to say it was a Monday. And there's a lot that goes into hanging new curtains, and especially fiber optic curtains, because you have to run a lot of cabling to them, and you have to without getting too technical, like there are cables that go to them, they have to go to the board, we have to figure out a way to program them in, but just the hanging alone takes time. So Monday night we hung the curtain. Tuesday night we started working with the curtain, and we couldn't get it to work, but we thought, okay, we're going to figure this out. And a lot of times for us as tech crew, we do a lot during the rehearsals, but there's so much that goes on after the rehearsals. And after the rehearsals is when we do a lot more programming. And you see, we have to actually, it's called patching the lights into the board. And that is making it so that the board can control the lighting. And when they are fiber optic lights and they are LEDs, it's even harder because you have to designate different channels for each color that's in those LEDs. So Kenny and I sat there, and we were having a very hard time figuring out exactly how to patch in the star curtain because, again, it's very digital and we're still working in very analog. So I actually called up a friend, and I had a friend on the phone, and we finally got things patched in. That's great. The star curtain is patched in, and it's working. Except in the process, we may have deleted all 196 cues of the entire show.
Oh, no.
I don't know how. I don't know where they went. They just disappeared. And at that point, the entire show was written. And we were going into Wednesday, and obviously we were preview show on Thursday, and it took me from Sunday to Wednesday to write those shows or those cues. So Kenny and I literally sat at the board for hours. Hours. And we finally found the saved show somewhere in some deep folder that was deep between like one folder and then probably 6 or 7 folders deep. It's somehow saved there. And it was just a fluke that we finally found it. It was like 6 o'clock in the morning when we finally got everything back. Both of us were just calling people, and we're like, yeah, we're still here. Like, I don't know. We're here. But it was crazy. It was probably like the biggest mishap that we've ever had at the theater as far as the lighting goes, because it was the entire show was just gone. So getting it back was a great thing. Walking in and telling Kristen, the director at the time, what happened was probably the best part, because we may not have told her that we got the show back at first. We may have just said, hey, we lost the entire show, but your star curtain works.
Will might have come in and said to me, hey, here's the story. I'm going to go tell Kristen that we lost the show. Watch this.
And then what happened? I got hit.
And yeah. But then you told her that it was found. And
I got hit when I told her it was found.
I think we all knew enough to know that if it was truly lost forever, there would have been more swearing involved. So
I don't know what you're talking about.
They don't call it Hell Week for nothing, right?
True story.
It was like an 8-hour process from the story I heard. We all gave up and went home. We were like, good luck, Ken and Joe. We're gotta go.
Yeah, thanks,
And
guys.
they were
Thanks.
there
I appreciate
all
that.
night.
It was. I think it was about 6
You're
o'clock in the
welcome.
morning when we finally got to leave. But again, like I said, there's a lot of times though that's what happens. I mean, rehearsals end, and Kenny is there until 10 o'clock in the morning sometimes, working on the sets, or we're working on lights. What's really cool is that he's so awesome with working on sets that I can just turn all the lights off and keep programming while he's doing it. He's just like in the dark going, all right, I'm just painting. Or he's drilling. Like he knows his stuff so well. Anyway. So yeah, that's the story of the Titanic Star Curtain. But it looked really good during the show.
But it made such a difference. I mean, I think it put everybody in the audience into that mindset of we are in the dark, in the nighttime when the ship is going down. It added such, it's something that seems so simple, but when you think about the technical elements and what they bring to a show and how they add to the story, I don't think you can downplay the importance of some of those things, that it's just not the same show without some of those things. Like we had run it several times without the Star Curtain, but then when we had it, it was like, wait, we're in a different place now that we've got this Star Curtain.
I think when it comes to lighting, there's always just that little tiny element that can change an entire scene. During Big, it was stars when we threw stars up into the audience. I'm sure there's a couple other shows I'm not thinking of right now where, I mean, we just incorporated as much as we could. There have been other shows where we threw lights in the audience or against the side walls or something that just encompasses everybody to become a part of the show. And I think that's a really big thing. And like I said, I just think that every now and then you just have that one moment. And for Titanic, it was the Star Curtain, but just you have that one moment where that light is everything.
Absolutely.
My favorite moments in rehearsals are, I think especially Mike does this, but different directors do it differently. Like when you hit the light cue just right and it looks great and the timing was perfect and the director says yes or wow. Or
it's normally a lot louder than that.
When it's Mike, it's yes, which is awesome. But I know I'm doing a good job when Mike is yelling yes from the audience. Because of that.
Pretty close.
I feel good about myself then.
Yeah. Any other, I guess I'll pass it up to John for sound mishaps, since we're talking about light mishaps.
What?
Your favorite question?
Never.
Mishaps? So, especially when you're dealing with anything other than like professional theater where it feels like you have, well, at least the interviews I've seen, professional theater seems like they have enough money that they can buy enough duplicate equipment. Basically, in the entire run of the show, you're always a little bit redesigning the show every night as far as something's going a little bit wrong, so you got to compensate, whether or not there's extra echo just in the room, and you're trying to balance things out. My dunking into Cassidy was they bought 3 new wireless packs for Chorus Line and then didn't end up using them. And so I was the guinea pig. And without getting into too technical of the details, they were different than any other I'd ever worked with before as far as how they send and receive signals. And I didn't find that out until actually researching them after the fact. But they have a anomaly with them that can happen, basically, that you will not find out until you get an audience in there, which has a whole bunch of cell phones, because they're running these, instead of using low bandwidth signals like most wireless microphones, they're using 2.4, 2.5 gigahertz, which is wireless if you've ever looked at your wireless router. And so all those
It's what
devices,
everything runs on now.
basically,
Everything.
Yeah. So why, without getting too deep, we gave, because they were the new ones, the person who designed Joseph gave 2 of them to the leads, which meant they were always on stage. So it really wasn't an issue. They were always within range of the receiver. But they gave one to Dakota, who was the goat, who was downstairs. And basically I lost her every night the first weekend. She only has like 5 lines, 5 words, maybe. I don't know. It was really short. So there wasn't any time to like troubleshoot to find out that, she's not working, or her mic wasn't working. So the first weekend was, and like I'm new. I feel like this is all on me. My first real interaction with Mo, because she's so involved with other things that week, Mo's the director, was why is the goats not working? And I was like, I don't know. It's basically, so I had to take apart, look at the manual over the weekend, and then Dakota and I worked out a thing where she came up during the when the curtain speech is happening, and I was like, we do a real quick sound check, essentially a second sound check while she's standing right next to the booth. I think that's just the other interesting thing about running sound at Cassidy is the fact that the booth is basically in the audience, but not. There's it constrains you certain things. Like I can only have so much light, so it's interesting trying to see my book, and then, but also is it beneficial because there's things that I can do because I'm down on the floor. So, but yeah, that was my dunking into was learning the anomalies of these three wireless mic packs. And
I think the coolest part of the story is that John actually read a manual, and I think that's awesome because anybody else in tech is like, no, I'll figure this out.
Well, the interesting, I had to find the manual first on Audio Technia's website, which was an issue in of itself. But yeah,
we love Audio Technica. Please sponsor us.
Yeah, we'll take that.
Yes,
you're our favorite.
I like them. I in theater that was pretty much all we used. Or sorry, theater in college that was all we used. That was the biggest show I'd run before this was Into the Woods, which you can see behind Katie up on the top. That was the first show I ever ran sound and had a whole bunch of mics for. But you were in the sound booth basically, which was also the light booth. So it was a lot easier. You could it changes a lot of things when you're a little bit separate from the audience. You can have a lot of light up in your space, and you can see your scripture working from things like that, as opposed to trying to peer at it.
Mental note: get John more light.
It's not really like it's a promise. Like, you could get me more light, but I wouldn't be able to use it because any light that's back there is going to be interfering with the audience, who's like 5 feet in front of me. So. I don't know. It's a.
That's why we stay upstairs.
It's a lose because like if I'm upstairs, I can't hear the sound at the audience level in a similar way to what the audience is hearing. But if I'm down there, then I have a limited light. So it's you take it or leave it, and find ways to compensate by like using highlighter. I highlight one of my cues so that at least the blue lights, there's blue LEDs around the soundboard, so that I can see them better. You know, it kind of brings out what's highlighted, almost like a fluorescent effect, essentially. So that helps. The thing I like to buy also is a lighted keyboard for the computer. I think that would be the other piece of that. But.
So if you see this make a contribution thing right here, right?
Yes. We'll keep bringing that up.
Go for it.
There is actually a question in here. So for light and sound, if you could replace any of the equipment with generous donations, what would you like to have replaced? The number one thing.
Oh, Joe has too long a list.
Sorry, Joe.
Joe would add. I think it wouldn't be replaced. It would be add, wouldn't it?
No, it'd be replaced. And I have a really great answer for this. Are you ready?
Yes.
The entire system.
Sounds like our new capital campaign.
Right? Yes.
Yep.
Absolutely. I think that for the lights, you know, I love the theater. I really do, and I love being able to do different things. I think if we were to add things, I would like to add more of the LED lights that we tend to have to rent because we don't really have the capital to purchase them. They're expensive. I would also like to see more moving lights because it gives us the dynamic to be able to use less lights in more places because obviously they move themselves around. Whereas it takes away from us needing to focus everything and putting it in one spot. There's so many times in these shows where we have what we call a special, and then that light hits one spot and one spot only, and it is for a special moment in the show, hence the name. And that also makes that light not usable for just about the entire rest of the show. So if we had lights that were lights that moved and we could control them that way, I think it would help out a lot. But LED lighting also comes with the cost of, we really need to upgrade our 1982 board. It still works, kind of, for the most part. But I think that if we were to upgrade, I would go with more LEDs and with a newer digital board where we could really give the audience some amazing effects and really add to the show a lot more than what we can right now. I think what we have right now is good. I really do. I think that we are fortunate enough to have a lot of lighting. We're fortunate enough to have the number of lights that we have. I've done stuff with other theaters that have maybe even a third or less of what we have. So I think that we're fortunate enough to have that. I would just like to see it so we could make it just a little bit easier to hit those specials, to hit those moments that you just want to hit. I go back to Little Shop of Horrors when we had the intelligent lighting for that. There were a few other shows we brought them in for, and I'm not remembering what shows they were. But I think that's my answer, is I would go with more LEDs and probably a new board with a generous donation from any lighting companies that are out there or anyone who wants to donate to Cassidy, because, you know, I'm really big on donations, especially for, why is this mirror thing is killing me? Especially for lights. See, look, there
you go.
There it goes, right there. Right there. Uh-huh. JoEllen, take my finger. Come on, what are you doing?
Oh, sorry. We're an awesome tag team, me and Joe.
We try really hard.
We do.
Yes.
We have good conversations.
Yes, we do. I agree with everything Joe said. We should get all of that. All of what Joe said.
And John just wants a new digital board. He just wants to do more
and a keyboard.
And a keyboard. A lit keyboard.
I'm good for the most part with our board. You know, more channels would always be great. So we're not kind of like playing hit or miss. Sometimes it's like picking or choosing. Do we want to add more here or there? But that's technically we have a bigger board. We just need to get it fixed because of an incident apparently that happened before my time. The real
power surges are just a pain in the butt.
Yeah. The real issue that I struggle with every show is the. You good? Oh, sorry. Is the run of cabling that goes between the back and the front of house. Oh, yeah. It's intermingled. It's definitely intermingled at places with the lighting, because if you bring up, especially the front row of lights over top of the very front of the stage, the speakers will pick up a hum. So there's definitely crossings that are happening. It's older things, you know, power cables break down. But basically replacing that entire run for both the speakers, and then there's also a line, it's technically the same snake that goes from the back to the front that picks up the band and brings it back to the soundboard for me, and then it goes from the soundboard back to the front to the speakers. I'd say the other piece would be some of the speakers need to be replaced. I think one of them is dead, though whether or not the speaker is dead or it's the amp is a little hit or miss. Most likely the speaker, because the two speakers, there's certain things that you can't see very well because unless you look up in the rafters, but there's two speakers right on the dead center of the stage, and those are they're really old, which old is not necessarily bad, but old not working is useless. And so at least one of those isn't not working. I'd say the other thing is after you redo the cabling, if you look also up at the rafters of the stage or of the theater, you'll notice there's metal paneling up above the brickwork, right below the roof. So if you are in the right spots in the center front of the stage, downstage, and you do like a clap or a nice high-pitched sound, you can hear it echo around the entire theater because it's creating this. You're in a sweet spot essentially. But that only, you know, sometimes, occasionally that's been good. Most of the time that's actually been a negative, and it's something I have to compensate for. Like I'll have to make sure that during, like at the very end of Joseph, during the end of the mega mix, there was a very big high note. and I had to mute everything right as soon as that was over, because otherwise, within about a split second, you would start hearing feedback coming through the entire system. So basically, a lot of that I think would be solved by enclosing that upper space with something that's soundproofed and fireproof, which is part of the reason why I think some of the stuff that was there's some curtains that are on over portions of it. I've also heard some of those were damaged at some point, but something more permanent up there. But yeah, long-winded answer, but yeah, the soundboard is, for the most part, works. It's fairly new, so it works just fine. It's really it's the issues are always getting sound from the front to the back and the back to the front. It has sometimes a matter of troubleshooting. Sometimes people tell you about issues right before a show's supposed to start, and then you're like, I don't have time to fix this now. I could try, and then I end up making things worse, which is what happened one night during Plaid. But yeah, anyway.
But I can try while I'm doing all of the cues, while I'm doing the entire show, while I'm moving stuff around, while I'm making it all trying to happen.
Multitasking.
This was right at the end of basically we're supposed to open house, and it was right at the end of everyone doing sound check, and I was like, we haven't been able to hear ourselves. I was like, couldn't we do it a few minutes before? And anyway,
I think that's the beauty of tech, though, is that there's so much that we do behind the scenes that people just don't even know. We are the team that truly makes it so that you don't know when there's problems. At least we try to do that. We kind of try to troubleshoot throughout the entire show. Right. True story.
Yes. You're like ninjas in the process, trying to swiftly go fix things, or if something happens backstage, communicating that with Jen and making sure things still continue on the way that they should.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think we have time for one last question, which this might be a difficult one. How has COVID-19 changed how you think and approach your various crafts? What would you do differently now?
I would open up everything again so that we can all work again. Yep, that's what I would do. I think that COVID is really hurting the arts. I think that it's hurting performance in general. I mean, you're talking concerts, theater, everything that people get to go out and enjoy and take their mind off of their 9 to 5s. They take their mind off of the stress of their day. They take their mind off the stress of family or any issues that are going on in their lives. We as performers, entertainers, theater, we get to take people out of that mindset for an hour or 2 or 3, and they don't look at their phones. At least we hope they don't. But they don't look at their phones. They don't care what's going on at work. We give them the ability to come into our world and be a part of what we do. And I can't wait until that comes back, honestly. I think that's the biggest thing for me with COVID is I really hope that we can get back to working soon so that people have that escape more than anything. I think now is a really good time for people to realize that the arts really do help. And it helps with everything just involved in your life.
The other side of that is when people have more emotions. Right now people have a lot that they're dealing with and a lot on their plates just with COVID-19 and race relations and money and all the stuff going on. And music is healing, arts are healing. I work in the mental health world in my 9 to 5, and both emotions as well as music, creativity, arts all live on the right side of your brain. So we've kind of taken away people's outlets for their emotions. And in a time when we need it more, we have it less. And I think that's one of the hardest parts for people in general, for all of us. We were talking when we got started, we haven't seen each other. It's hard to not have those chances to connect with our theater family. And, even some of our patrons are our theater family. And so to not have that support during tough times and to not have the creative outlets during tough times, it's just extra hard. And you got to find some other way to get around it. And I think that's the piece of, everyone's trying to figure that out. And some people have gotten it better than others. But I'm hopeful that we can get back. I don't want anyone to get sick. I don't want anyone to, be hospitalized or die or anything. But it's really hard to not have some of the things that are so healing when we need so much more healing.
Well said.
I don't know. I don't know if I can add to any of that because I feel like that was a really good covering of it. I don't know. Mike asked specifically like affecting yourself. All I can say is this has kind of given me a little time to reflect over, especially last fall. I did 3 shows back to back. I did tech, and then I was in a show, and then I did tech again, with 1 week of break, which was Thanksgiving, which we were traveling, so it wasn't really a break. And literally tech week of my show I was in on stage at Independence was the final Sunday of Footloose. So it was a crazy 3 months, and by the end of December I was sick. So just not doing that to myself again, because I think that's the other part of what this time period as far as like taking a break is also, I think, important at times. You like to jump in head first and stay busy. Sometimes you need to take a break. I guess that's personally a small thing that I'm taking away from it, is not putting myself through something like that again. Much as I enjoyed each, doing each of those things, it was more of, self-care is important. And I think that's important, and reason why we're still, keeping to ourselves at this point and not going out in public and taking care of ourselves and wearing masks and everything like that is important.
Yeah, definitely the wellness piece, I think, is really essential. And us theater folk tend to forget that because we're just so excited to work on our next project that, you need a little bit of time to slow down. So great points, all 3 of you on that. And I'm of course very much looking forward to the day that we get to reopen our doors and in a safe way and get to enjoy live theater again. I'll ask one more final question, but before I do that, I'm super excited to announce next week's episode, which will be themed around our youth theater and how folks got their start by being involved with youth theater. And we're bringing on some really exciting guests, including Corey Mock, who you might have seen if you've gone to Broadway in Kinky Boots or Wicked and several other productions. Sean Patrick, who has done stage managing with Broadway, and our own Kate Michalski, who works on our marketing for Cassidy Theater. So lots of things that we'll get to talk about in relation to youth theater. So super excited for that. Check that out. Again, as we've been pointing down, check out that make a contribution section. You heard of a lot of different ideas for things that we'd like to do in the future. And obviously having up-to-date technology is very helpful to accomplish those things amongst the talent and time that these 3 have spent with us for years being involved with Cassidy Theater. So thank you to all 3 of you for that. My final question, just to end on a high note, is what would be your dream show to work on? A hard but good one.
That's a hard question.
I think mine would be Cabaret. Cabaret hits on everything that I love about theater. So it's kind of historical, and I'm a history buff. It's fun and kind of over the top, which I think is awesome, but it also really makes you think and kind of pushes people to be uncomfortable and think about things. So Cabaret has always been a favorite of mine, and I would love to watch that 15 times on our stage.
I'm not sure this could work at Cassidy in the way it's in my head. It's hard for me to think about the show as. So I'll say the show was various people have been trying to put the Prince of Egypt movie as a live show, and it's been done in production. What's the right word for it? Production theaters? I don't know. It's been done in Arizona. It was just opened in the West End before COVID, but I don't know. It's something I've had thoughts about for a while. It wasn't an original thought to me per se, but like once someone put it in my head, I was like, that'd be really cool. And then I started thinking about things as far as environmental projection and other stuff that I've worked on tangentially, as well as actual sound and lights, and just I feel like you could really, that show has such great music, and then you could put you could really immerse the audience if you did it the right way. So I don't know how well it would work at Cassidy. It would probably require, my idea would require covering the walls with something white so you could project a screen on it, because brick isn't exactly what I had in my head. But that would be my dream show if I could ever design the look of a show, I guess.
I think from a lighting design standpoint, I really want to light Rent. I really do. I want to light Rent. I think that there's just so much involved in the show, and I think the lighting in that show is so powerful. But from a personal standpoint, I just want to do Avenue Q.
Yes.
Just saying, like Avenue Q touches on everything that I like. I mean, like Cabaret is a great show, JoEllen, but I mean, Avenue Q has like puppets and adult situations and crude humor.
I couldn't work on that show because I would need to watch it with you, Joe. So
right?
That's
we would have so much fun.
I like the diversity of answers here. So hopefully Mike Karafi's still watching this. Take notes. So, but fantastic. So again, thank you all for being with us for this hour to talk more about Cassidy and hang out. It was good to see you all. Minus John, who I see every day, all day.
No count, John.
It's so good. But otherwise, yes. Otherwise, we look forward to having you all back to watch next week, and we hope that you have a safe 4th of July weekend this upcoming week.
Awesome to meet you guys.
All right. We'll see y'all.
All right. Enjoy.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.